This is the heartbeat of human services, a peek into the inspiring stories of our community and all things DHS. Join us.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Heartbeat of Human Services podcast. My name is Allison Vota.
And I'm Paola Hernandez.
And we're taking over for Janice Slagle today to talk about a serious but important topic called Purple Ribbon Month. If you've never heard of Purple Ribbon Month, it is something that is declared every single July by the Kern County Board of Supervisors. And the reason that is it's in honor of Caitlin's Law. And Caitlin's Law passed in 2001, which makes it a citable offense to leave children under the age of 6 unattended in a motor vehicle without the supervision of someone who is at least 12 years of age.
Yeah, so Caitlin's Law was put in place because of a child, a couple months old, was left in a car by her caretaker. And unfortunately, this caretaker did not notice her in the back of the car and she passed away.
Yeah.
And even before then, before this law, there has been several deaths.
Yeah, and it was an important turning point in this, what we would consider a preventable death in children. You know, we can go over, the incredibly heartbreaking stats. The highest year that we've seen is in 2018 when there was 54 deaths in our nation from kids being, left unattended around a motor vehicle.
Yeah, and even this month there's been 8 now, and
Yes.
Just yesterday we had one. I think it was Virginia, if I'm correct, where there was a father who unfortunately forgot about his child in the back of the car. And I think he went along his day. I don't know whether he was going to work or whatnot, but got back to his car and saw that his child had passed away. And the series after that, I'm sure you go through several thoughts in your head of remorse, guilt, and he got home after that. It was gruesome in the report that it said he went to the back of the house in the woods and committed suicide by gunshot. But that just goes to show you how important bringing awareness to this is, because it could happen to anyone.
It can. And I think that's an important thing to touch on is I think a lot of people think that they're invincible to this, but that's not necessarily the case. These parents, many times, actually, we know that over 50% of parents and caregivers that have experienced this, where a child has died, unintentionally left that child in the vehicle. And it's definitely something that I think every parent, grandparent, caregiver, babysitter needs to be aware of.
Yeah. And even in Kern County, or specifically Bakersfield, where we're at, I clocked it at 101 degrees today. And on a hot day like today, within even 30 minutes, the car could heat up to about 134 degrees.
Yeah. And it's only 107 for your kid to get hyperthermia from the ages of 0 to 3 years old. And so it could be a matter of minutes where your kid could reach that body temperature. So even if you're telling yourself it's only 5 minutes into the grocery store, I know that it's a hassle to take a baby into a grocery store, but it's not worth the risk to just leave them in the car.
Yeah, and I know BBD puts out a statement every year too, bringing awareness to this. And I know it's not a baby, but even for dogs, they said they had like 113 calls for dogs that were left unattended in a hot car. I believe the number was lower for children, but I mean, it's still something to be aware of for anybody.
Yes, absolutely. And especially for babies, we know, Paula and I have been, reading about the fact that their body temperature rises 5 times faster than our own. So we could be sitting in our car with our AC off and, we could be fine for a while, but it's the younger children that are really affected by this. And that's why Caitlin's Law specifically says, you need someone 12 and older to be supervising that baby, someone who is old enough and wise enough to understand the signs of heat stroke and hypothermia.
Yeah.
And honestly, in Bakersfield in this heat, you want to make sure that AC is running at all times.
Yeah. And in the report too, I even saw that the oldest this year was 5 years old.
5 years old.
You would think that children at that age can unlock themselves out of a car, but honestly, if I was scared and, went into panic mode, I don't know if I could at that age know or understand to just unlock the car and open it.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's a terrible thing.
So we've talked about, that a large percentage is, unintentionally, kids being left unintentionally in a vehicle, but we haven't really explained why that is. Why does that happen? Why do caregivers and parents forget and end up inevitably, leaving their kids in a car? I'm your host, Allison, and I'm interrupting today's podcast to highlight extra help positions available at Kern DHS. We highly recommend applying if you're looking for a position that can help launch your county career. The following positions are available now: Extra Help Social Service Worker 1 and Extra Help Administrative Coordinator. Apply online today at kerncounty.com under the Careers tab. Thank you for listening, and now back to the podcast.
Yeah, I did some research on that, and when it comes to the brain, it's so complex, and I started reading into it, and I did read this one report written by a college professor who talked about how there's 3 parts of the brain, and how it works is that one of those parts of the brain, which, excuse me if I get this wrong, but it's called the basal ganglia, and that's the part of the brain that goes on autopilot. And so when you're driving home and you forget to go to the grocery store, that's that side of the brain that puts you on autopilot. And so the other 2 parts of the brain are the hippocampus and the frontal cortex. And so those are the parts of the brain that are thinking about the future and are kind of the more technical. That's the part that's like, what am I going to do next? And so unfortunately in this research, it said that the autopilot side of the brain is the one that wins when all 3 are working at the same time. So that's why you see parents forgetting their children in a car. And as simple as something distracting you as a phone can off-rail what your plan was originally, which is what he said had happened to one of the parents. So it's as easy as that, which is pretty scary.
And, getting into that, I feel like most people have that moment where they are on autopilot while driving and they are supposed to go somewhere else and they end up going almost to work, because your mind is just in that place. So getting distracted. There's even reports of parents who literally have a memory of dropping their kids off at daycare that morning and still going to work. It's, your family is not
it could happen to you.
Yes, it can happen to you.
That is the bottom line, that this can happen to anybody.
Yes. And, even this morning discussing with our coworker, she said that she wouldn't be able to forget them because they are so loud. And I remember the story of, I think this was last year, a family was taking their kids out and someone forgot to take the baby out of their car seat. So even with a lot of kids, understanding, whose role it is to get the baby, who has the baby, and that even with a lot of kids in the back of your car, that's not necessarily going to prevent you from forgetting that that little baby that's asleep.
Yeah, one of the stories I was reading, it said that one of them was a mom who has 3 other kids in the back of the car, and all the older ones jumped out of the car, and she prepared for her daughter's birthday party but forgot the baby in front of the house in the car. Or there was another one where a grandma took all 3 kids to church and then forgot the baby when she got home. And in these situations, it's an accident.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the tragedy of these deaths, but what we want you guys to get out of this is that this is preventable. So we want to share with you some of the ways that your family can prevent this. Car manufacturers in the last few years, they have come up with some ways to try to combat this.
Yeah, and I think there's a law that might pass next year in 2023 saying that any cars over 10,000 pounds have to have an alarm system for the passengers as well. You know, when the car beeps at you at the front passengers, now that's going to be put in the back. So that would be definitely helpful for preventing situations like this from happening. But I know there's other ways of prevention now. If you don't have one of those newer cars, like putting a diaper bag in the front seat, just as a reminder that your child is in the back. Or maybe I know we hand out tags to the public during this month that say baby on board or something like that. I know that's silly to say, but anything to remind you that that baby is in the back.
Yeah, it's a little handmade tag that you can put on your steering wheel if you have a baby in the back seat. So it just serves as a reminder to look before you walk, which is our huge message for this month. Another thing that I know Paola has done research on is alarms that you can put, and they come in multiple ways. There's one that just kind of beeps at you as you're exiting your vehicle. There's another one that's that's temperature based. So if your baby starts to get overheated, it'll alert you there. One thing that I've seen mothers do is put an important item in the back seat, like their phone or their purse. The phone one, I think, is one that already kind of naturally happens, especially if you have a 3 or 4-year-old. Sometimes you'll hand over that phone or tablet, whatever it is. I know that there's a lot of vehicles now that are keyless, and so people will put their key
That's a good one.
in the back seat as well.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you can do. I know there was a silly one that said take off your shoe, but honestly, I would do it. I would do it.
Yeah, and you know, these little silly ways are just one of many, many examples of things that you can do to prevent car deaths. And we know that this works. We've seen this. We've seen the decrease since 2018. And so, you know, even if you are a grandparent, a babysitter, just practicing checking your back seat no matter what, it's going to be so important, especially during these hot months.
So with all that said, if you need any more information or want to learn more about this month, please follow us on our socials. On Facebook, we are on Instagram, Twitter, and our handle is Kern County DHS. And for our website, check out kcdhs.org. And for a lot of the information that you heard today, go to kidsandcars.org. Thank you for listening, you guys, and we will see you next time. Please follow us. And this has been your Heartbeat of Human Services podcast. I'm your host, Paula Hernandez, and in today's Mindful Minute, we'll be talking about how you can improve your memory. Our podcast topic talked a lot about Purple Ribbon Month and how caretakers or parents could forget a child. Maybe because their minds went on autopilot or they were just extra distracted that day. It's a very scary thing, but what I learned from researching this topic is that it really can happen to anyone. Although there are no guarantees when it comes to preventing memory loss, certain activities can help. So here are some tips for any parent or caretaker listening today to sharpen up your memory. You can include physical activity into your daily routine, which is linked to increasing blood flow to your brain. Or you can stimulate your brain with crosswords or puzzles. And just some other ones to list them off are sleeping well or eating healthy foods to fuel your brain. There are tons of ways to keep improving your memory. And for more information or safety resources concerning Purple Ribbon Month, visit kidsandcars.org. Thank you for listening, and this has been your Mindful Minute.
Thank you for joining us for the Heartbeat of Human Services podcast today. We hope you'll join us next time.